lot of people, including some people in Arrow who work with John, tell me that he's a great boss and that he's determined to try and do the right thing. But as James Fox revealed recently, John can't even part his hair without getting the permission from the Pentagon. There's a huge restraint on what the Arrow boss, that's the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office boss, can do to investigate and reveal what he's investigating about UFOs in the Pentagon. And I'm assured that they actually don't have the security clearances to get access to the deepest, darkest secrets of the legacy program, which frankly explains why Dr. Kozlowski said that he had no evidence at this stage to support any allegations of a extraterrestrial or NHI engagement with this planet. The simple fact is nobody's telling him, and he's not cleared to do so.
How many different things, how many different versions of these things are there? If this is like a testing ground, is this open to the general public of space?
Also not 0 or 1, probably right. 0 or 100. It's probably a zoo of things.
Right.
It had little stubby protrusions, rounded protrusions in the place of wings. So it didn't have wings. And these protrusions opened up, and there was a series of lights, like rapidly blinking lights. And he said it was like it was scanning, and then they folded back in, and the craft began to move away. And as it moved away, there was a low frequency hum.
There were apparently rumors about me even the first night, because somebody asked Jeremy or told Jeremy Corbell I was here, and he said, "Oh, why would he be here?" That's the rumor, at least. So why was I at Contact in the Desert? It wasn't to harass Ross Coulthart. You gotta be kidding me.
I mean, can we just acknowledge how ridiculous that statement is? Like, they really think you are stupid. A Pentagon office has spent months of rigorous investigation, and after months, we've worked out, oh, it was us. Oh, it was us. It took us months to work out it was us all along.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for being here with us. Thanks, team, for all your hard work this week, as always. Trickle on in. Fire up your systems. The sDm Files, episode 18. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Share with your friends. Go do all the things. Go do them right now. Come find me, x.com/shopdownmine. We will do the thing. Make sure to check out all the links down in your breadbasket. Thanks again, everyone. Here we go.
I think that's a sensitive medical record, and so do David's lawyers, and that's the argument that they're making. The police department, of course, is arguing that these are police records, and if anything, they had an obligation to release them. It's a very important issue for FOI because it's never been made clear before whether the sheriff's office can make this claim that because there are intimate medical details inside a police report, they somehow don't have to apply an exemption that applies under Virginia law. Specifically, the Virginia Code says that recordings, reports, records, documents related to commitment hearings for involuntary admission shall not be subject to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. That's pretty clear. And additionally, Virginia FOI law exempts health records, particularly those related to involuntary admissions, to protect the release of sensitive personal information. Now, what happened? David's sensitive personal information was revealed, it did cause him tangible damage. This was an attempt by, I suspect, people in the intelligence community who told this journalist where to look to try and damage David's credibility by suggesting that he was mentally ill and therefore couldn't be trusted. There are few more damaging assertions. This is of the vein of the way that say, for example, the Pentagon Papers whistleblower was smeared when the Watergate burglars tried to break into his psychiatrist's office to procure his sensitive medical records. This is how dirty the national security state gets. They told the journalist in this case where to look, and that was a really inappropriate and bad thing to do, and maybe the journalists should have been more discriminating, knowing that they were being manipulated by the national security state in what was essentially a hit job. So it's going to be very interesting. I don't think it's a lay-down win for David, but I think he's got a very good chance of success.
Ross Coulthart, Q&A. Reality check. With Megan. It's like Orada. We looked her up last time. It was this one. Editorial producer, Megan Orada. I don't know, we got her name wrong, last time. So we got her name in there this time. He calls her Megan. Her name is Megan Orada. He just got back from contacting the desert. This is, from this morning, basically. I like their contents, they got here, their chapter summary. Let's look. Has Ross been silenced? Ross reacts to Aero director acknowledging NIH. Ross reveals new information on the drone incursion. What's happening in 2027? Is Greenland a UFO hotspot? Do all humans have psychic ability? What to do if you see a UFO? Ross's take on new David Grunch's lawsuit. Where to send your questions, and goodbye. It's good stuff. As always, he's back from contact in the desert. He's freshened up. He's back on the case. Look at all the people there. I don't even think I actually was watching this part earlier. There's Danny Sheehan. Oh my god, every time I see that guy, it's like, whoa. I was just listening to it, I guess, earlier, but there he is, contacting the desert. We got an interview later that he gives at Contacting the Desert with the podcast UFO live shows, Martin Willis. The fun stuff in here is, let's look at the contents again. Has Ross been silenced? I don't know what they're talking about there, honestly. So we won't worry about that part. But let's see here. He goes over the new Aero director. He says he likes that guy. He doesn't say anything bad about him, and says outright that he'd really like to get him on the show on News Nation to do an interview and talk about all these things, and that he's way better than the last dude who sucked a lot. And he's been in the news a lot this week for a bunch of different reasons. I don't think they actually addressed them this morning's, but it's really been just the last few days, that Matthew Brown, the newest UAP government insider whistleblower with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, he's been tweeting about how the government has advanced AI to predict the future and to do all sorts of crazy stuff. And because of his most recent tweets, he is, in ufology news talking shit about Kirkpatrick, which he was doing in his interviews with Jeremy Corbell. And everyone in ufology is really popular thing to do, to talk shit about Shawn Kirkpatrick. So they do their Shawn Kirkpatrick shit talking, but they say the new guy is a lot better than that dude. Obviously trying to get him on the show, basically. drone incursion. The new information is they kind of mixed it in with the 2027 stuff where he's saying, and he must have been saying this for like the last 2 weeks because he was saying it 2 weeks ago in his interviews, but then he was gone at Contact in the Desert. He must have been saying it to everyone there. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know what's going to happen in 2027. All he can say is that all sorts of people, all sorts of his high-level intelligence sources have told him that there's bad shit gonna happen in 2027. Really bad shit that they don't even want to talk about or think about, and won't tell him anything about. He doesn't know what it is. He just knows that those people think that something bad's gonna happen in 2027. He can't tell you anything else. So he's got that kind of tone of a guy who's been like saying it to like a bunch of Yanks in the desert for a week and a half. His comments on Grush were good, informative. He won't even mention, you'll see, he keeps on saying the journalist. So, David Grush comes out, kind of in the Corbell side of things, but on Ross's, that was kind of Ross's, grand opening to ufology was he brought Grush to everybody and did Grush interviews. And then not too long after Grush was out and done his interview, and maybe 2 interviews, like short interview and long interview on News Nation, then the enemy attacked him with information. And so they talk about, a journalist went and got private medical information through FOIA. And he keeps on calling him journalist, and he won't say that it was Ken Klippenstein. And so Ken Klippenstein breaks a news story, and it might have even been on News Nation, but maybe he doesn't work for News Nation anymore and didn't. But I'm sure he did work for News Nation, at least for a short time period. He drops the, poisoned apple info that Grush was arrested and put in a mental institution because he was having a PTSD, alcoholic meltdown. He's mentally unstable, and so he's a crazy guy. And of course, he's talking about UFOs and aliens because he's fucking nuts. And so, make sure if you're watching his interview on TV that you know that he's nuts. And if you happen to see him like testifying in front of Congress or something anytime soon, remember that he's nuts and an alcoholic and a wife beater, right? And so Ross doesn't go into any of that detail, but he won't even say Ken Klippenstein. He just says, the personal info. And then he gets into the weeds of, David Grush filing a lawsuit against the police department that releases info to the journalist. Because the journalist was out to get the info. Were the police allowed to actually release the info or not, according to local laws regarding medical records and FOIA requests? And so this has kind of been like the sort of like excuse that's been presented, not really directly, but it's been presented to ufology for why David Grush is sort of like disappeared. It's because he's been involved in this lawsuit, and this matters a lot for lots of reasons. One of which is if he wins, then he's stuck it to the man, and maybe he'll be able to be much more forthcoming and much more public after that. If he loses, then it kind of seems like the man stuck it to him, and maybe he won't be able to be any more forthcoming than he's already been because he's gotten one. And he won't be any more public than he's been, which has been, zilch since the, congressional hearing. He's been gone. So anyways, Grush is news because he's been hired by Eric Burleson on the Federal Top Secrets Committee to help him weed out the who's of ufology as they bring people in to talk about, UFOs and aliens. So they don't mention Matthew Brown. They don't mention any of the weird stuff that's going on in ufology this week. So there you go. Ross Coulthart in true form. There's no fuckums from him. The very beginning, and then a little section at the very beginning up here, they ask him about the lack of fuckums and the new, more colorful language like rip snorter and spittle licker or lick spittle. right? Which I like. I'm gonna try and use lick spittle as like a insult and a curse word in everyday life. Thanks to Ross Coulthart.
The Nordics are fascinating.
The Nordics, tall blondes that look like humans.
The ones that look like us.
I attended a conference for UFO enthusiasts called Contact in the Desert. While there, I was able to ask a few of the best researchers in the field about my favorite topic.
But he talks about him seeing one and then communicating telepathically. And Timothy Good, in my book, was a very credible guy. He's a prolific writer. And
so they're hanging out. They're conferring. He doesn't hear anything at this point. So then they start walking toward the escalator where he is. So this guy is a colonel. He has a PhD. He's a sharp guy. And he's thinking, I am going to talk to these people. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to talk to them. I want to find out what the hell is going on here. So they walk toward him, and instead he says nothing. They get on the escalator, they go down, but then he gets behind them. And he said to me, I heard them conversing in their minds. I said, do you know that they weren't talking? He says, look, I'm pretty damn sure they weren't talking. I'm hearing it. What were they saying? Well, they were saying something like, yeah, he can hear us. No, he's not important.
UFO experts discuss alien encounters. Full documentary. Area 52, Chris Ramsay. I say it all the time. He's basically one of my favorite ufologists. He's definitely in the same camp as like Richard Dolan there, or other people that we'll have around a lot, like Vetted. And lots of people. They're in the camp of like to go along, to get along. They kind of just are in ufology to be in ufology. They love all of it. They want to hear everyone's story. They're not debunking anyone. They're not criticizing people. Tell me your cool UFO and alien story, dude. Chris Ramsay is one of my favorites. He's at Contact in the Desert. He gets to meet all the ufology people, and he's one of them. And this was the kind of stuff I was kind of expecting from him. I was kind of expecting this kind of like, check it out, here's your fucking UFO heroes, man. Talking about UFO stuff. And this is yesterday. This is in 1922 or 1877 or 1960. This is yesterday. Richard Dolan yesterday talking about mantids and Nordics and telling his story like he's on the podcast. It's really done well. It's 43 minutes. It's a quick watch. It doesn't really dwell on any single person or topic or anything. There's very little Chris Ramsay in it. He asks a few questions, and then you get to see, all these folks answering it. George Knapp, Jesse Michels, James Fox, Whitney Strieber. Pretty sure sometimes I get him confused with somebody else. That's Whitney Strieber. The other guy that shows up in here a couple times, I don't remember his name. It's probably like Luigi. And I'm pretty sure, I don't remember Luigi's last name. But, Chris Ramsay's really good friends with Luigi, and Luigi's really good friends with Corbell. They're Corbell camp people. That's Stefan, what's his face? Probably telling everyone that next year the aliens are going to show up and get us. He's always making predictions for next year. So this is fun. Last week, right when it was all starting to get done or go down or finish up, it was just being hot. We got the video of Chris Ramsay with Pat from Vetted with Ashton Forbes doing magic tricks. And that was really fun. So this is fun. This is Chris Ramsay, Area 52 style documentary of Contact in the Desert. I think that if you're like a ufology, there it is, Luigi Ventitelli. And I think of like absolute most latest what he's working on and doing is called like the Area 51 project or the Bob Lazar Area 51 project, something like that, where they've completely recreated Area 51 and Section 4, S4, everything that Bob Lazar was involved in, the vehicle, etc., in a virtual reality environment. So a video game environment that you can make movies in, which they're doing, but also you can go, us regular people, when they're all done with it, can just go into it, go into the virtual reality environment and check out Area 51 and S4 from the point of view of Bob Lazar. So like I said, fun stuff for ufology fanboys everywhere. This is where it's at, right? And we didn't get any George Knapp this week because he was in Contact in the Desert, but where we get to see George Knapp is in Area 52, Chris Ramsay's documentary.
Talk about those little mummies in Peru.
Yeah, dude.
What do you think is going on there?
They break my brain. This was the most frustrating case I've ever had to deal with, and I wish I could give you a definitive, these things are definitely dead aliens. I cannot say that definitively at all. I do think there's a lot of reason to believe that they are forensically organisms. They're organisms
if
that
they're not, they're incredible works of art.
If they're not, they're the most sophisticated hoax ever that basically tricked forensic experts from John McDowell, who just won the greatest award in forensics you could win or whatever, the Grand Wall Award, who is the president of the American Forensics Scientific Association or whatever in the U.S. Jim Caruso, who's the chief medical examiner in Denver. The equivalent of McDowell is a guy named Dr. David Ruiz, so he's the Peruvian head of their forensics association, and the head of the Mexican Navy forensics, this guy named Dr. Jose Salze. All of these guys have seen... So
I think we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. So let's explain to people this so they can be standalone, because a lot of people are like, what the fuck are they blabbing about?
Yeah.
There are these very small, mummified-looking things that are in Peru that seem to look exactly like a similar kind of thing to a human being, but varies enough that you know it's not us. And it has more ribs, it has more spinal columns, or more discs. This is what they look like. And there's x-rays of them, and that's where it gets really weird. And they're tridactyl, right? So they have 3 fingers and 3 toes.
Yep. And these were discovered in 2015 in a cave by a guy named Leandro who goes by Mario. And this is one of the headaches about the case is like we don't have good provenance on it. So he is this Huaquero gravedigger guy, and they were found in diatomaceous earth. So there's actually an idea that they might not even be mummies. Diatomaceous earth is a desiccant, and so they were dried out. And a lot of the organs are actually still inside the bodies. And there are 3 different types. There are S-types, which are these little winged creatures. There are J-types. The J-types are they were most popularized in this Mexican Congress where these things were outed in September of 2023, where they look like almost Close Encounters. Jamie, if you scroll down, like you see that Peru's Congress, like right there. Like that thing looks like this like jokey like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Like it looks like
totally fake.
It looks totally fake, right? So those are the J types. They're like 25-ish, maybe 25 to 30
but
of
then
those.
there's the ones that they've x-rayed, and that's where it gets really weird.
The weirdest ones that I was talking about, the forensics people kind of evaluating, are these M types. These are like 4 to 5 feet.
Are you driving way less than you used to? Do you have a clean driving record? Are you over 25? Do you
look pretty anatomically consistent?
Have you seen them in person?
I have.
Really?
Yeah.
And what was your feeling?
My feeling was, it was this...
Keep those images up, please.
It was, as with a lot of these things, oscillating between, holy shit, this thing is not from here, and then, dude, you have to, like, chill, and, like, there's so many other things, there's so many other gates this has to get through for us to actually... verify this stuff.
See if you can go the x-rays, Jamie, find the images from the x-rays. That's one, but there's one that's a little bit better because it's one of the fetal position. It's
Jamie, in my document, actually.
Look at that one.
Okay, there you go. So that one has eggs inside of it.
What?
If you go...
What?
Yeah. Montserrat, which
look at its hips.
Yeah.
How weird.
So if you go to Montserrat clip, yeah. So this one's pregnant and has what they are claiming to be a tridactyl fetus inside of it. Yeah.
How many of these do they have?
So they have 8 to 10 of these M types, these kind of most realistic looking ones.
8 to 10?
8 to 10. And then they have 25 to 30 of the J types. So yeah, look at that. That's a 3D reconstruction of the CAT scan.
So they have teeth. That's weird.
They have teeth,
right?
Yeah. They have tendons, they have bones, they have cartilage, they have organs inside. And then, so this is where we need to verify stuff. They even have actually.
Could you go back to the part of the video where, what's that? Yeah, that part. What the fuck is that, man? That's crazy.
They have osmium and cadmium implants in them, which are rare earth metals that were discovered in the 19th century.
Joe Rogan Experience, number 2331, Jesse Michels. Not bad. It's long. It's almost 3 hours long. Jesse Michels seems like, he's having a cold. I saw him on Twitter saying, thanks a lot to Joe Rogan's team for taking care of me because I had a cold. But he's just, going off. Him and Joe Rogan are doing a great job. They're just, UFO buds, having a good time talking about mostly UFO stuff. Joe Rogan lets Jesse Michels just kind of like riff and just go off. All the different things, Jesse Michels shows some real great mastery of the knowledge and all the different intersections. And he's got something kind of exciting and enthusiastic that he wants to like tell you about the thing, about whatever the thing is. Not just, here's a bunch of stuff. Here you go. He's got all of this. There's a bunch of stuff, but there's just one thing in here that's really, really cool. That's why you got to know all this stuff. So they get through a lot of ufology. They don't get through everything in ufology, even though they cover a lot of topics. I don't think there's any like summary or anything. Definitely my favorite part in here is the Nazca mummies. So there's 20 minutes kind of Nazca mummies. Jesse, like on all the topics, does a really good job kind of like summarizing most of it without getting lost into like another topic, basically. So they do Nazca mummies. Joe Rogan's mind is blown. They bring up the 3D imaging of the CAT scans, etc. He explains to him that this one's got eggs in it with larvae. They got about 15 of these kind of like 4-foot sized ones, and then maybe there's 30 of these smaller ones that they think might be effigies or dolls. And then there's a bunch of much smaller ones that are like obviously dolls or effigies or something. He does mention it sometime in here that the smaller ones were put in front of the Mexican or Peruvian Congress. And he doesn't, take a second there to mention that. And Ryan Graves was there going, oh shit, what the fuck is happening? Like Ryan Graves really was ambushed. He said, and they said, and everyone said afterwards that basically right before Masson and his pals brought these guys out to the Congress, they'd taken Ryan Graves in the back and shown him and said, hey, this is what we're doing. He was like, oh no. And he had that oh no look when he was out in the main body of the, congressional body, and they were parading these little kind of dolls out. So Jesse Michels doesn't really mention that part, which isn't important, honestly. But at the time, it was hilarious, and it's still kind of hilarious. But maybe the whole reason Ryan Graves was even there that day was kind of add, more bearing to the hearing that was going on, proceeding, whatever. So Jesse Michels, great job. A lot of times I say I don't really like Jesse Michels. It seems like some of his guests don't really like him. Some of his interviews are like really great. Most of them I don't really love very much, but they're always kind of like valid. They're modern. Whatever's going on in ufology right now is being covered in some way by Jesse Michels, or that's even actually part of what's setting the breaking leading topics in ufology on a daily, weekly basis is what Jesse Michels is releasing content-wise, his interviews, like Malmgren. And even Grush at the time, it was a big deal that Grush did a, kind of 3-hour buddy hiking, playing video games, interview documentary right after his interview came out on News Nation. So Jesse Michaels, he's not my favorite always, and I say it probably a lot. But on Joe Rogan, he was really good. This was really good. The 20 minutes on NASA mummies is amazing, but all the different little sections on all the different kind of ufology topics, Department of Energy, nuclear weapons, Mom Green, black programs, all of it. Pretty informative, and for 3 hours, this is pretty mainstream, and it's just under 3 hours long. It's not that bad for a Joe Rogan episode. It's pretty fun and entertaining. And as far as Jesse Michaels go, like I'm sure it's basically his best performance. There might be one or two others that are kind of up there, but I'm not sure. I have to actually go and think about it a lot because he's doing good here. It might be the cold drugs they gave him, right? Might be the cold drugs. Nazca Mummies, Jesse Michaels, Joe Rogan, everyone.
As I said, we've got advanced aerospace vehicles in play here, not just, so the narrative of jetpack miners was obviously becoming less and less, was becoming more and more absurd, let's put it that way. And the cartel explanation was becoming less and less likely as we were conducting this investigation, because I don't believe that cartels have this kind of technology. The assailants did have backpacks. Everybody did describe it. It was like a small hard shell pack that was attached to the body armor. And they clearly were they were floating with whatever mechanism was attached to the bottom of their boots, and they were flying on the discs. They were not jetpacks.
Timothy Alberino, Lost Chinkana City, the greatest discovery since Machu Picchu. Shawn Ryan Show number 206. Timothy Alberino, one of my favorites. Basically well known across the world as being a giant researcher. He goes to all the places all over the planet, listens to the people there about their ancient stories of giants and giants building stuff and giants being around and giants being killed and giants eating people and all the different things like mounds or other kinds of temples that they built over the remains of giants. And so he gets into ancient aliens a little bit because of the giants and because of the different types of origin stories that ancient peoples tell. And then he's a South America expert guy. So basically all the ancient peoples of South America say that they came from some type of aliens or space people, or got help from some kind of aliens or space people or underground ant people. So anyways, he's kind of like an ancient aliens kind of guy, giants guy. I like him as like a good PR face guy. Like I think he could replace Stephen Greer as like the face of the Greer organization. You could keep Greer in there in all of his executive roles, like no problem. But have Timothy Alberino do all the PR, all the public stuff, all the interviews. I'd vote for him. It really got my attention a couple years ago with the face peeler stuff, because the face peeler stuff was pretty intense and incredible and weird and out there and impossible. But it was, it was new, it was modern, it was real, it was happening in real time. And you're seeing all these little reports on News Nation and other little places where reporters would just mention, people in Peru say that they're being attacked by people on jetpacks who are trying to peel their faces off. Face peelers, chupacabras. And that's what he says at some point in here, is that he was watching the same kind of thing. Like, I was just waiting for somebody, some kind of Westerner, some kind of people that we trust, credible, to go down there and check it out and see what's going on. And no one did. And eventually got enough calls and enough people who are interested, enough people who are asking him questions about it, because he's basically an expert and speaks the language of that particular place in Peru. And so he gets some people together and goes there. and goes to Peru and goes and checks out the places where all the people were saying that they were being attacked by face peelers. And it wasn't just one place. And, he describes it in lots of different places on his show and all sorts of different interviews he's done. And even here a little bit that the main places where they were getting all the reports that were making it out to the Western news media are actually two kind of geographically separated places. And they're geographically separated by mountain range and jungle and a couple rivers, real serious rivers in the jungle. And so him and his team, they went and checked out the main place on one side of the mountain range and on one side of the two rivers. And then he went and checked out all the other little places on the other side of the mountain range and the two little rivers. And they got a lot of the same stories from all those places. And so you can find Alberino telling the story everywhere. And he's probably the only person you ever actually see telling the story, especially nowadays. When it was happening, there was a little bit of coverage here and there, like I was saying. But pretty much if you see reporting going on about face peelers in Peru, which is now from a couple years ago, 2 summers ago probably. It was happening right in the middle of the Grush stuff. Right at the same time as like the Miami thing and the Vegas thing. This was kind of like in the same flap, even though none of them are geographically in the same places at all. It was kind of the same flap. Vegas, backyard alien with all the police radioing in and even some body cam that's pretty sus of an alien in the guy's backyard. And then Miami, people saying there's aliens in the mall and giant aliens and maybe even aliens fighting each other. And tons of cops showed up, like every cop in Miami. We see the video of that. And there was smoke and there was holograms and there was whatever. And then there was face peelers going on right in that same time period. So it's all kind of the same ufology flap, really, when you think about it. 2023, the summer of 2023. It's when Ashton Forbes shows up, too. It's when Grush shows up. So he tells a story. They have this labeled the Lost Chinkana City. He tells a great story of, how the Spaniards, when they first arrived in Peru and start, killing people and capturing people, and they capture the king, and the king takes them to where the treasure's at, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they never end up finding this treasure in this city that him and his pals end up finding, hundreds of years later. He tells a long story about that. What was the stories before that? Shawn Rancho has great, chapters on here. Love story, unique weddings with his wife. Great flood, ancient cataclysms. Kind of pins him down and says, "What do you think?" And he's in addition to being ancient aliens and giant guy, he's a Christian. And so he's definitely in that camp of ufology that is researching angels and demons and their relations to ancient cultures and the phenomenon. Underground cities and survival prep. Mars. Asked him about Mars. He says, yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a civilization there. Secret bases in UFO technology. Bob Lazar, Element 115, CERN. I don't know if he says there's one of these other interviews where they say CERN is the largest human machine ever created, and that they're making one in China. It is in this interview. They're making one in China that's 10 times as big as CERN. 10 times bigger. Encounters and ongoing investigations. Stuff he's doing now. Operation Resolute Sentinel. That's the American kind of relief, maybe CETO organization that's going on, or not organization, operation that's going on at the time of the face peeler incident that he thinks is maybe not purely for use as cover for the stuff that was going on, the face peeler stuff that was going on in the region, but was definitely being used by maybe even a breakaway civilization as cover for the operations that's doing in the jungle of Peru. Talks about breakaway civilizations. And he's kind of been peppering it through here anyways with the talk about the cartels and maybe aerospace companies being, super state status to states, countries, United States, etc., with their technology and their reach and their interests, archaeological preservation, modern archaeological discoveries. So there's a lot here. This is over 3 hours. It's almost 3.5 hours. Shawn Ryan Show episodes are generally pretty good. I like Timothy Alberino, so this is a win-win. What is noticeably absent is zero discussion, not even a mention of the Nazca mummies that we were just talking about with Joe Rogan and Jesse Michels. And Timothy Alberino is one of the first kind of Western, kind of big-time podcast people to kind of finally overlook Jamie Masson and his involvement and go check out the Nazca mummies himself and come back and say, oh shit, there's something going on there, especially with all the forensics teams that are there going, oh shit, there's something going on here. So I kind of expected there to at least be probably like a good 20-minute block on it in here, and there's nothing, not even a mention. They don't even mention it. So that's actually probably significant that it's not even mentioned. And Timothy Alberino, probably until Jesse Michels, I would have said was the best person that they've ever had for the Nazca mummies. Best celebrity, best face of the topic to come out and give a summary and description and explanation of what's going on to the rest of us, kind of without Jimmy Masson being the focus of what was going on down there. So it was definitely missing from the Shawn Ryan Show, from the Timothy Alberino interview, especially with it being 3.5 hours. I'm sure they could have done 20 minutes on there, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. They could have mentioned it and laughed about it a little bit. Great interview, great everything. Great section here. It's really two sections. It says face peelers in the Amazon, and then there's encounters and ongoing investigations, and that's all about the face peelers.
And there's Ross Coulthart right next to Bryce Zabel. They're sitting together at a table to our left. And I notice them, and I'm, walking with my buddy Mike, and I see Ross, and, he looks at me, makes eye contact. So I go, hey, Ross, just like that. And I kind of keep walking, and Ross says something. I can see him say something. I can't hear him, but I see him say something. So then I come back, ask him what's up. And Ross says something like, oh, are you here to ambush me or something like that? And I go, no. And my question for him in the moment was, like, do you really think that I'm making all this up? This is what I told him. I said, do you really think I'm making this up? Do you think I'm actually woke up one day? I was like, hey, you know what, guys? I'm going to try to convince people that we got magical orbs that teleport planes away. I was like, you know what? I can become rich scamming people off of this.
BAASS, UFO document and contact in the desert. Ashton Forbes. This is 2 hours long. It's like the first half is it's a little bit less than half. Let's see. Right around the 50-minute mark is when he starts doing the Bass UFO document. So the first 40 minutes or whatever is contact in the desert. And it's great. I'd seen him in the Pat at Vetted and Chris Ramsay Area52 video last week where they're doing magic tricks. And whoa, there was 3 of my favorite dudes doing the contact in the desert thing and doing magic tricks. And it was great. And so those 3 guys have come out swinging hard with their content since Contact in the Desert. And that's what Ashton Forbes kind of starts with. He says, I'm rejuvenated. Contact in the Desert was super inspirational, and I'm rejuvenated. And I went there to kind of get a new perspective on life and see what I'm going to do with my life and see what's going on. And I came back just inspired and motivated, and I can't wait to go on with the rest of ufology. And I went there to do networking and etc. So it's good stuff, especially if you've been following the Ashton Forbes arc at all in ufology. If you're one of the people who's on one side or the other, then then you probably can't be persuaded to be in the middle or on the other side at all, so it doesn't really matter. But it's still super fun. And so even, I think I even said last week, but even the fact that the ufology people let Ashton Forbes in, they let him buy a ticket, they let him come in, they let him go to all the things, they let him chill by the pool, like he said. They let him go to the restaurant and confront Ross Coulthart and Bryce the Bell, and then go off to the hotel room with Bryce the Bell and have drinks with him and agree to have each other on each other's podcasts. That's not how you would be treating him if he really was the villain of ufology, which is basically, how they treat him online. And the story here with Ross Coulthart being an asshole is hilarious and kind of expected. And that everyone else wasn't an asshole. Richard Dolan, Bryce the Bell, Chris Ramsay, Pat from Vetted. I don't think he really name dropped a lot of other people. He makes a big announcement in this video that he's going to be on Tim Pool podcast for a debate. He's going to bring his own wingman, scientist, expert, and then he's going to go up against some guy, I don't know who, and that guy's scientist, expert on the Tim Pool show. Maybe it's Tim Pool and one of his experts. I don't know. I probably won't watch that, but I probably will watch Ashton's coverage of himself afterwards. You'll see the tweets first. Ashton gets a lot of coverage on X and everywhere. People are constantly trying to debunk him. He's definitely, like I said, he would be considered, I'm sure, the top most ridiculous ufology villain right now, current times. And then he goes to Contact in the Desert, does magic tricks with Chris Ramsay, and has shots with Bryce the Bell. And he says, from this, he says, I can't, he had a great quote in here, and I probably didn't clip it, but he has a great quote in here where he says, well, I can't change the people of ufology, the people at Contacting the Desert, the people like Ross Coulthart who just want to hate on me and try and debunk me, and etc. But what I can change is myself and us and our thing. And so he gives a little speech in there about how they're going to keep on questioning and they're going to make the U.S. government admit that the MH370 videos are true. And so this is just another brick in the wall. This is just another stepping stone. This is just another small step for Ashton Forbes kind as he really makes the arc, the transition from ufology villain and the worst, most evilest number one ufology villain to ufology hero. He's going to be ufology hero one day, and it's going to be sooner than later. What I've been saying on X is Ashton Forbes' picture. He's going to be on ufology money soon. He's going to be like the first president of ufology or something. You watch.
Government official who's blown the whistle, like Lou Elizondo, David Grush, Chris Mellon, literally anyone who's come from the government and has spoken out about UFOs, this is saying that they are all part of a disinformation campaign to cover up the next generation stealth fighter. In other cases, officials allowed UFO myths to take root in the interests of national security. For instance, to prevent the Soviet Union from detecting vulnerabilities in the systems protecting nuclear installations. Stories tended to take on a life of their own, such as the 3-decade journey of a purported piece of space metal that turned out to be nothing of the sort. And one long-running practice was more like a fraternity hazing ritual that spun wildly out of control.
Polarity. They're trying to shut down disclosure. Kirkpatrick claims all UAP are fake. This is a great video. It is short. It's 30 minutes long. He, he's losing his shit a little bit because he's talking about the Wall Street Journal article that everyone's trying to talk about this week that is saying the article in the New York Times from 2017 was deeply flawed. The research behind it, etc., etc., etc. The videos related to that article, the gimbal, the go fast, the FLIR, the U.S. government insiders that were related to it, which is Louis Elizondo and Chris Mellon and others, are all suspect and part of basically a disinfo campaign, whether they're purposely involved in disinfo or doing it on accident because they believe in the disinfo themselves. Either way, it's disinfo that was put out on purpose by the U.S. government. And that's what he says, at the end of this article. It says, hey, this Pentagon office took a long time, spent a lot of money researching UFO mythology, ufology, and they found out that the most recent stuff, basically everything since 2017, everything since the article, all the things related to the article, and everything since then, and all the people, mentions Grush also, are all either fooled by the disinfo campaign or part of the disinfo campaign that is being put on by the Pentagon itself, fueled by the Pentagon itself. Some of it's hazing practices, some of it's this, some of it's that, all to keep actual capability of the Air Force and the Navy and the top secret programs concealed from the public and the enemies and the government. So it's a fun episode. Since it's so short, it's definitely ufology required. It's required ufology. Watch his video. He covers a lot of stuff. He covers a lot of the most recent stuff. He doesn't get lost on Matthew Brown at all in this episode. He just references it. There's a lot of Polarity content that you can watch every week. Beautiful 30 minutes. Great summary of basically the last week of ufology right there in that 30 minutes, honestly.